Hi, I'm Stuart Little from alittlephotoshop.com, and in this screencast I'm going to show you how to do a tilt and shift lens effect. Now, tilt and shift lenses are very expensive items. They give you amazing control of not only the depth of field but also convergent verticals and things like that. But they're kind of mainly used for effect these days, but you can kind of fake things up in Photoshop. And in particular we're going to lean towards faking a miniature setup. So we've got these actual steam locomotives, as you can see if I zoom in. You know, the real people there, real lines, real detail, people working on it. And we're going to set up this image so that it looks like a Hornby train set. You know, something that's on a tabletop, 00 gauge or whatever environment. I never ever played with trains, I was more of a kind of Scalextrics kid. Anyway, to do this, we're going to apply some different tools and techniques within Photoshop. Going to use the gradient tool, going to use lens blur, going to use a bit of quick mask and things like that. But before we do all that, just to explain to you the most important thing, and this shot demonstrates it, is the angle at which the shot was taken. Now this shot is provided by Jamie Welsh, who's a long-time supporter of alittlephotoshop.com and discussion group member. And he has kindly donated the image for the screencast. And not only that, he has taken the shot from the correct angle that's needed. Because if you want to make something look small and miniaturized, you really need to take it from an upper elevation. So shots from plain windows, hillsides where you're looking down into a valley of a town, that kind of thing. Large buildings, you know, if you're up top of the Eiffel Tower in Paris, perfect, you know. Things like that are going to help you with this effect. You need to have that sloping down, you know, angle of looking down on something for this to work. So just a little sort of photography tip for you there. So to get started, we're going to make a copy of the background layer. So we'll do Command or Control J, and then I'm going to name this layer Tilt and Shift, just because I can, and it just reminds me of the technique that we're about to start with. After that, we're going to press G on our keyboard to go to our gradient tool. Now you need to make sure that the gradient goes from black to white. White to black rather. At the moment it's black to white. So you need to inverse our colours, so you press X on the actual gradient itself, like so. Make sure we're on the primary gradient. We have white on the left hand side, black on the right hand side, so white to black, left to right. It's very important that for setting this up. If you've got a different colour, as you saw there, I just clicked on the gradient and worked towards the one at the end and used the X key to inverse the colours so that we get this balance. So once we've got that, we're then going to go from our linear gradient to the reflected or horizontal bar gradient, like so, because we're going to draw a horizontal bar in the middle to create our point of focus for the shallow depth of field effect that we're trying to achieve. We're going to use Quick Mask to create this effect. So if you press Q on your keyboard, that will activate Quick Mask. Now the reason you know you're in Quick Mask is that the actual layer colour, the active layer, changes to grey, and it also says Quick Mask at the top of the image title bar. So that's you're in Quick Mask mode now. So to draw out the gradient, I'm going to hold down my Shift key so it's a nice straight line. I'm going to start just below the locomotive driver's, the engine driver's elbow, and I'm going to draw it down to just past the sort of edge of the foreground wagon, like so. And then from there we're going to press Q again on our keyboard and come out of Quick Mask mode. You'll then see this double selection set of marching ants, and that's what we want to achieve. If you haven't got that and you've got a single selection, you're going to need to inverse the selection. So you need to go to Shift, Command or Control I. But hopefully you worked with white on the left hand side, black on the right on the gradient colour, and you end up with this setup. Okay? From there we're going to get into Filter, Blur and Lens Blur, and that will then dip into our setup. And what we're looking for, and what I've managed to achieve, is a really shallow depth of field and just getting the National Coal Board signage that's on the actual locomotive sharp. That's my point of focus that I'm trying to replicate. Now the settings in here I've already got. Now the radius you're going to have to just play with because it depends on the resolution of your image. You could be anything between 30 and 70, but what I have found is blade curvature 52 and rotation 52, brightness 30, and the specular highlights threshold at 255 works brilliantly. I know some people like to drop the rotation and the blade curvature to absolutely 0. That's fair enough, you know, whatever way you want to fly with it. But I try to actually match the two to the actual radius. It seems to look better. I like the effect overall. So it's up to you how you roll with that one. Blade curvature off, rotation off, or whether you actually dial it in. Purely up to you. Now, at this point, it's going to take a few seconds for this to actually process through. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to let that do its thing. And from there, we'll pick it up once it's actually done the lens blur filter. So the lens blur effect has been applied. We'll do Command or Control D to get rid of the marching ants. And then from there, we want to do a few final little tweaks to help sell this effect. It's looking good at the moment, but we need to just fine tune it. So first things first, I'm going to do an adjustment layer of vibrance. Now if you're on Photoshop CS3 and you don't have the option of vibrance, then just use hue and saturation. It'll work pretty much the same. The good thing about vibrance though is it obviously allows you to saturate the image more but retain tonal detail. So we're going to go for vibrance first of all. We're going to have quite a heavy vibrance. We're going to go for around about +40. And I'm also going to add a little bit more saturation, around about +10, because what we want to do is oversaturate the colours. Because the thing about actual Hornby train toys and things like that is they're painted with pretty bright colours. Generally they tend to be a little bit more glossy and more saturated. So that's what we're trying to achieve here. And that's why that adjustment layer has been applied. But again, if you have an earlier version of Photoshop, just run with an adjustment layer of hue and saturation. Will work absolutely fine. Then finally, we've got an optional curves. Now this one again, depending on your image, you may want to apply this or not. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just basically force the brightness up a little bit and then bring down another point to just deepen the actual colours. I'm just going to pull this back a little bit. I'm basically compressing the colour range a little bit just so that it kind of has a more realistic look to it in terms of getting that miniature look. You can see before and after, so just a little bit more sort of saturated, a little bit more clippy, but you get the sort of general idea that's going on there. And that's basically the overall effect. If I just get rid of my rulers, we'll go full screen for a little second to bring it up. You can see the idea of the detail, and it really does look like an actual miniature, which is pretty cool. So there you go. Apply this to your holiday snaps when you're taking a shot of a Greek town or something. Have a go with locomotives, have a go with aeroplanes shot from the viewing galleries that you get at airports and things like that. That kind of thing. Have a bit of fun with it anyway, because that's purely what it is. It's a bit of fun in creating miniature effects in Photoshop. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed that, and I'll catch up with you for the next screencast next week.